And now I'm going to introduce. That was a S. We heard that. Margareta Bohlin. Where do I have Margareta? There we have Margareta. You're coming from Gothenburg, from the Department of Psychology there, I understood.
Yep.
And we were originally planning to have a friend of Margareta called Kim Kaheri, who had been done research on teenagers and acoustics and how to make an environment that would work and satisfy everybody in a rock and roll club, which and made the musicians happy and made the youngsters happy and made the neighbors happy and everybody. So that's great. And it's very difficult to find people that deal with problems connecting with sound environment for young people. But Margareta has really done this, and she's been looking at how we confront risk situations. And you know, there's many rock and roll addicts that when they've grown older, they maybe regretted that they played so loud in their young days. We know that.
You didn't see what I did.
Yeah, right. So, go ahead.
Thank you. I came here last evening, and I was so fascinated. It was spring-like. And then I woke up this morning, not as fascinated, because I was allergic. So my eyes are tearing all the time, and I just want you to know I'm not sad. I'm really happy to be here and happy to be invited. I will speak about my experience from researching children and young men and women's lived experiences, and with a special focus on risk behavior, risk-taking, and risks. I will not pin any special study. I will talk more generally about this area of research. However, I will mention what I have learned during these years that I have researched this topic. You see here, I'm not alone in this research. I have many co-workers that I have been working with over the years. Well, first I would like to talk about the complexity of research among children and youth, and especially risk research, maybe. As you all know, people of all ages participate in activities that can pose a threat to their health. For example, being exposed to high sound levels in musical settings, rock concerts, MP3 players, and so on. However, it is important to not only see risk as threats, but also something that can enhance positive experiences and opportunities. And that is the case when it comes to music, I believe. And in the traditional risk research, there are few studies about hearing risks. And the complexity of this risk research is that there is so many components when you're trying to research this area, as in every research area, I believe. But you have to think about young people's identity processes, the development phases, stages. We come as a researcher from sociology, psychology, cultural sciences, gender sciences, and we have different theories like intersectional theory, gender theory, social theory. So it's rather complex, and so it should be, I believe. Oh, more perspectives. We can see this from several ways, but this is some of the ways I have come around under the years. The individual perspectives, where risk-taking is understood on the basis of factors related to the individual's personality, gender, social background, cognition, and much more. And we can see biological differences as they explain the ability to experience stimulation, arousal in various situations. For example, you maybe have heard about sensation seeking. Yeah. We have cultural perspectives. Risks are social constructs which in itself reflects a specific community. Culture is multifaceted. Social and discursive perspectives. Our way of understanding risks are based on their own experiences, but also the norms and values of our surroundings. Perception of risk is collective produced discussions or debates in society through authorities, government, different systems in the society, several groups, different kinds of groups, and of course the individual. And a more unusual perspective that I am trying to investigate, and I have tried, the existential perspectives. And in that perspective, risk can be understood as an existential phase of adolescence, questioning the world, exploring life, death, searching for meaning. Yeah, a search for their own identity. Existential anxiety and powerlessness may also explain some destructive behaviors. And we have all seen this in society, the year that has gone, where powerlessness is a tough burden to bear. So why have we did what we have did, do what we did do? Well, as you know, for many young people's lives, music has a central role. Perhaps because it fills various functions in identity development. Youth period is characterized by rapid change. Very rapid change, we say nowadays. Lifestyle switches, as well as music interest switches. The existential meaning of music can be related to life and death in a deeper sense, and many of us can recognize ourselves in the power of music, I believe. But why are not hearing risks seen as a risk in the same way as traditional risks? If it comes to speeding, unprotected sex, smoking, you know, it's the feeling, maybe some of you, not all, the feelings when you sit in the car, you put on the best music, loud, and you drive away in speed. Well, music is the essential part of youth life. Not for everyone, but many. But that interest may damage the very tool for pleasure, their hearing. So it's quite difficult to handle. So in short, under these years that we have researched young people, what did we learn? We learned that there are common denominators between hearing risk judgments and traditional risk judgments, as well as between hearing risk behavior and traditional risk behavior. So hearing risk should be regarded just as well as traditional risks. But you see in the questionnaires that measure risk behavior, there are almost never hearing risks in them. Young people that judge a situation to be risky engage less. However, this was not the case for hearing risk judgment and behavior. And maybe that is because we don't see, we know that loud music can be damaging for your ear, but you want to listen anyway, maybe at loud volumes. And a surprising result was young women judge risky activities as more dangerous than men. However, women participate in risky activities in the same extent. And that was rather surprising because we often hear that boys take more risks than girls. But it could be due to that we had a measurement that measured judgment and behavior split apart. But it's quite interesting. We did follow up on this in another study, and then we found that young men have lower risk perception, more positive attitudes, norms, and idols regarding loud music than young women. However, gender did not explain protective behavior. Hearing aids, not hearing aids, of course. What you call it? Hearing. Thanks. So we went further. We interviewed people, young people, about these questions. And we found that both genders, at least in this group, describe risk-taking to be a part of the existential and social identity. However, in different ways. For women, existential identity was constituted of feelings of desire when you're taking a risk, but at the same time, they thought about their vulnerability. They also wanted to have control over the risk that they were taking. But men, they reasoned about feelings of responsibility for themselves and for others. They did. But they also spoke about freedom, and freedom was more important than responsibility. And then they talked very much about consideration about life and death. And the social identity for women, their thoughts laid in strains of and loyalty to public appearance, trying to adapt to collective demands of gender. They try to live up to what is seen as okay for young women to do or not to do. And now women actually are supposed to take risks, whether you want or not. And for the men, there was quite a lot of talk about the strive for power in the peer group and in the environment. And they also talked much about masking the vulnerability. They don't want to be vulnerable. And they also speak about gender, but they speak about femininity, not masculinity. And that's quite interesting. And we learn to listen to the voice of youth. What do we still want to know then? Very much, desperately much. There's so much more to do. But something I want to look into, the effect of changes in society, and we all should maybe, increased equality, new technologies, social media, for example, and what the effect on young people's life, what it is. And as women assess risks as more dangerous, they are in their lived experiences, not in fact, but the lived experiences, taking higher risks. And what does it do to the young women? And this can also be true in many arenas, of course, even the new ones on the internet. And I am curious about what constitutes the relationship between the social and existential world of humans. So the base for continued research that I have, we have, it's young people's identity and risk-taking. It changes over time and space and in relation to social change. And young people are socially active, affected by and affects the social context. Identity development is an ongoing, lifelong process. We don't stop at 18 to take risks, for example. I know that. The identity is tested at various venues in relation to the significant other and in different contexts. And last, people are seeking beings that exist in the real social world, in which they take an active part and be aware of. The big question is what it means to live in a special psychological, social, cultural, and historical context. Identity can thus be seen from a social, cultural, and existential perspective. And theory. Here you can have listed some theories that I have tried to use in different ways. And there are a lot to learn, of course. And then I am very curious about the risk discourse. The risk discourse, or the discourse is a discussion or debate in society that is mutually agreed. In this case, it's the risk discourse. Of course, although we all participate in the discussions about risks, media has a quite severe impact on young people. And we are constructed from self-experiences, but also through the different public discourses. These are present in the media, in the everyday speech, around the kitchen table. You see in the pictures, in political discussions. Arga snickaren, he tells us something about what we should do or behave. And our reporter Janne Josefsson, he debates. So for adolescents in particular, contact with media affects their lives and the development of their identity, and they affect the media too. Their is good reasons to investigate how risks and risk-taking are portrayed in different kind of media. For that will affect how youth interpret what they are supposed and not supposed to engage in. And risks are stereotyped. It is due to gender, age. I am talking about youth. I have a stereotype picture about youth. I try not to have, but I have. Disability, impairment, socioeconomic status, class. So you could say that the discourse is affected by the intersectional youth and vice versa. So we have done a study about risk discourses in Swedish tabloids, because there were risky activities in different contexts and situations are described, discussed, and debated. And we contacted around 300 adolescents to get to know which tabloid, which media they're using. And it was Expressen and Aftonbladet, both online and offline. So we choose these two tabloids, and we was trying to find everything that we could relate to some kind of risk. And we asked in the articles, what is spoken, who is allowed to speak, and how do they express themselves. And we don't have the time to go through this so in detail, but we found 4 themes, and risks are portrayed as news reports, sport and health, entertainment, expert reports. Sorry. And in these themes, the risks stories is about, in news report, offenders, criminals, heroes that maybe rescue some from being hurt in the evening or in the night in the city, or the victims, of course. And they who often speaks or writes about this is journalists, press officers, and experts. In sport and health, the body is quite indestructible. In this area, it is okay to tolerate knocks, and it's okay to be injured in hockey, for instance, or in football. And in festivals, it's okay to not protect your hearing. And they who speaks about this is athletes, coaches, doctors, columnists. Quite interesting. I think it should be researchers. Maybe. In entertainment, we talk about idols, drugs, and very many stories about confessions. Confessions about when I was young, I was doing this, I was smoking, I took drugs, and I was speeding, and I put music on a loud level. And it can be actors, artists, program presenters, and columnists. And the thing with this is quite interesting, which people that adolescents are forced to listen to. And maybe it's not always we want it to be. and sometimes it is. So if we're looking forward, I have 1 minute left. Social media, I said it before, so we could go forward. Social media, internet research is very important, especially in discourse analysis. So in sum, it is mission impossible to try to combine the existential perspective with the social perspective. I don't think so. The social construct that we create together, and which often are the basis for how we choose to categorize the world, phenomenon, emotions, and action, limits or make possible the existential freedom in which human beings develop their identity. And this is what I mean with a current societal challenge. And I want to finish this by honor a truly fantastic man, an artist that sadly has passed away, Margareta Bohlin. And I'm sorry that it's in Swedish, it's a lyric of him. But he was an existential being in the social world, I believe. And he was interested in these questions, and he loved music. He was a lovely man, but a very troubled man. And he lived a hard life. So I think he could be a symbol for this speech. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Margareta. I think it's so nice when you do these qualitative studies that I also do sometimes, and you come up with drugs is connected to entertainment. I think that's really fun. Yeah. Okay, do we have a question for Margareta? I think Kerstin.
Yes, I think this is a very, very interesting and really difficult subject, but it's so important. And I've been thinking about this also a little bit, and I just wonder what makes risk and noise or hearing impairment so difficult? Because, I mean, we have this other examples in society, like, for example, smoking. That was also one of the things, you smoke, you're young, it's, cool, whatever. But then there was this kind of real change in the perception of whether it was cool or not cool, and so on. And I just wonder, is there anything we can learn from those kind of changes also when it comes to noise? Because noise seems to be, exactly as you say, it's more or less impossible.
Yeah, it is. I believe that it is because of, one reason is that it is about something that you can take away. You don't stop listening to music. You can stop smoking, but you don't listen to music. You don't, you know what I mean. And music is, or noise, music noise, it is, I think it's very important for us humans. And if Jung should have stand here, he probably would have said that music is an archetype. So music is so important. So it's difficult to find that balance between living the life in an existential way, maybe in music, and balance that with.
Yes, yeah. I fully agree with that. But and maybe we can discuss it afterwards because we don't have. But I mean, there are other examples like young people exposing themselves for shooting, fireworks, and so on. That is not so existential, but it is the same problem
Yeah.
with hearing a noise, and maybe we can leave that until afterwards.
I think this is a good example how you can work across different research fields, and really learn something from each other, I think. Well, you will also get some spring before you leave. Thank you so much.
Thank you.